Hello everyone, it's Vivi and we are back! Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time introduced us to the Flashback Tapes. As the name suggests, these VHS tapes literally take you back in time through a set of challenging courses. Obtaining a flashback tape requires the player to reach the actual tape on field without dying. Apart from the challenges presented when going through these levels, there is another interesting aspect, the tidbits of story sprinkled into it. Over the course of these flashback levels, we realize that we're actually playing through Cortex's trials and experiments, and the stars of these experiments are Crash and Coco. Now, what experiments and trials are we looking at, and what timeline are we looking at? These events were during Cortex's attempt at gathering his army of commandos prior to the events of Crash 1. According to Crash's final flashback tape, his trials at least happened before the start of the first game. This was right before Crash's escape from Cortex Castle. Recording was done on September 9th, 1996, and fun fact, that's the original release date of the first game in North America. And hey, ever wondered about Coco's whereabouts in the first game? According to her first tape, she too was put through trials, and this is a month after Crash's escape, October 9th, 1996. Piecing everything together, Crash's trials happened prior to the first game, and Coco's happened prior to the second game. If you want to word this differently, Coco's experiments or trials happened between the events of 1 and 2. These flashback tapes also mention a bunch of cool fun facts, especially on Neo-Cortex's side. Although we collect Wumpa fruit as Cortex, he's actually allergic to them. After Cortex realized that Crash was enjoying collecting Wumpa compared to other fruit during the trials, he craved some. But then Brio questioned him about his allergies to the fruit. While putting Coco through these trials, his fear of her failing made him question, or got him torn, between which species to put through trials next, either crocodiles or dingoes. Dingoes being a reference to Dingodile. In Coco's last flashback level, Cortex references a hedgehog, a bobcat, and a gecko as future test subjects. All of them being a direct reference to characters we know, Sonic the Hedgehog, Bubsy, and Gex. Speaking of reference, when Crash encounters a TNT crate, Cortex makes a remark about the thicker skull of bandicoots, how theirs don't shatter like a wombat's skull. The wombat would be referencing Crash's early design, Willy the Wombat. There's also one interesting thing in particular when looking at Cortex, the fact that he already knew of Dr. Entropy. The tape we're looking at is Resilience Evaluation, one of Coco's trials on June 12th, 1997. When Brio tried telling Cortex that Entropy was trying to call him, he sounded rather annoyed. Ugh, tell him I'm in the shower again. Even goes on to mock him and states how Entropy dislikes animal experiments. I'm Entropy. I think animal experiments are stupid. Pah, time travel, big deal. The one thing we can at least gather from this, Cortex was already aware of Entropy's fascination of time travel. Next up, ever since we noticed the name Crunch on Crash's fridge right at the start of the game, we started wondering about Crunch Bandicoot's existence, whether or not he exists in this new timeline. Crash 4 It's About Time takes place after the third game. Originally, we had Wrath of Cortex, which pretty much acted as Warp's original sequel. With It's About Time acting as the new number 4, we wonder about Crunch. Whether or not this Easter egg right here hints at anything, well, in Crash's 5th flashback tape outfit durability test, we do see a picture of Crunch on the monitor. All in all, this could indicate the possibility that Cortex could have at least thought about the idea of bringing another future subject or a secret project to the table. This same tape right here has Cortex revealing his more, shall we say, caring side towards subject Crash. Let's start with Crash's blue shorts. These shorts of his originally belonged to Cortex himself. It appears my old shorts fit the subject splendidly. I miss those shorts, so breezy. Oodles of room in the, never mind. At a certain point in these trials, Cortex asks Crash if he's being too hard on Brio and worries about him. One example would be how he restricts Brio's bathroom privileges until he gets the recipe right. This recipe would be for Crash's Wumpa birthday cake. That's right, Cortex wished happy birthday to Crash on July 19th, 1996. A couple months back to this, on May 30th, 1996, there was Cortex's diary entry. Dear Diary, I seem to be developing a connection with the subject. A fatherly... wait, did I hit the wrong button? And upon hitting a checkpoint, he added, subject is to ignore my last message. During Crash's final trial, Cortex reminisces how Crash used to nibble Wumpa out of his hands. Oh, it seems like only yesterday Subject was nibbling Wumpa scraps out of my hand. As a graduation present, he decides to name his subject Crashworth Cortex the First. Crash for short. Hey, remember Crash's blue shorts we talked about earlier? How it originally belonged to Cortex? Well, a similar scenario applies to Coco. April 8th, 1997's Flashback Tape. After Cortex states that he found an appropriate outfit for Coco, Brio makes the following remark. Are those my overalls? Mother made me those. So there you have it, folks. Both their clothing were either given or stolen from Cortex and his crew. Cortex also shares fondness over the type of shampoo Coco uses, telling Brio he wishes to use whatever shampoo this furry subject uses, his follicles decaying and all. Brio, at a point during Crash's trials, he tried to secretly become allies with Crash, so far as to plot against Cortex. The furthest he's gone, he built a laser in Crash 2. Upon collecting 42 gems, he convinces Crash to fire the laser he built to destroy Cortex's space station. But why would he plot against Cortex in the first place, you might ask? Most likely due to the way he's been treated, or how, perhaps, credit was stolen from him, such as the likes of the Evolve Array, perhaps. I'm using the word perhaps here because we'd be looking back at Mind Over Mutant, a game from the original timeline. By this I mean a game which happens in the future after the events of Wrath of Cortex. Speaking of Mind Over Mutant, there is a scene where Brio tells Cortex how he was the actual one who invented the Evolve Array. It seemed like Cortex always took the credit, if not for that game. At least going back to Crash 2, the timeline we're now used to, Cortex does admit that Brio invented the Evolve Array in the first place. Now, let's go back to Coco. We have the new hire, Jin, who realizes that Coco has fascination with technology, or video game addiction. Knowing about this, he thinks he could perhaps mentor Coco in the ways of mechanics and computing. Makes you wonder, doesn't it, if this is how Coco actually became tech savvy. So, there you have it. This is the end of the video. Like always, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you to my patrons as well. It means so much. If you have thoughts and questions, feel free to leave it in the comments section below. And like always, I've been Vivi, and until next time.